everybody, and happy Wednesday. It's your friend West McDonald, all by himself so far this morning. And I want to thank you for tuning in. We're going to have a special guest host coming in just a few minutes. And today, as you saw from the title, we're going to be talking about live streams versus webinars. This is a topic that keeps coming up, and the world is a-changing. And while we're here, I'm going to share a little story with you, a personal one about how things are changing. So I just moved, bought a new place. Bylaws are different here. So I had a travel trailer, which I can no longer keep here. And it's not worth storing somewhere else. So I called a wreckers to try and get rid of it. They said they'll only take the metal. You've got to tear the thing down, get rid of the wood, get rid of the windows, get rid of all the interior, stuff. So just a nightmare, right? So that's our world. I would say even as long as 5 years ago. So I'd be stuck having to do all that work. Fast forward, new tools that come to the marketplace. One of them, which I absolutely love, is the Facebook Marketplace. And Facebook Marketplace allows you to post things and sell them. And I kid you not, once I posted that item for sale on Facebook Marketplace, within 10 minutes, I had 6 people that wanted to take it from me. So as we talk about tools today, we're going to be talking about how some of these changes in the world affect how we do things from how they used to be done. Now, first thing, my buddy's not here, but Ken always wants to know where you're watching from. So let us know where you are watching from. You can leave comments in the comments section, and we'll be sure to, make sure that we post them up there for you, and look forward to saying hello. The other thing that I want you to do is leave questions and comments. It's a lot more fun and interactive when you do. And I think today, because we're really going to be weighing the merits of a live stream versus a traditional webinar, it could be pretty hot. So if you've got some comments, let us know what they are. And hey, Greg, I know that you can only come in audio today. How are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing good. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you great.
Cool. Yeah, sorry about the camera. Somehow it worked last week. It's not working this week, but regardless.
That's all right, man. We get the important part, which is your presence, right? So,
that's important.
I don't know if you caught my little story there about, the changing world, right? But in the old days, I would have to actually, I was trying to get rid of a trailer and having trouble getting that done. Looks like we got a LinkedIn user. Hello, West, whoever that is. Let us know who you are. We can't see your identity. Maybe that's on purpose. And Tanya Stone, beautiful, sunny CR. Love it. Yeah, and you can see me here with my, it's turning into a tan, but man, I got some sunburn. I was out of my kayak for the first time over the weekend. So good to see you, Tanya. Thanks for being here. And remember, for everyone else, let us know where you're watching from. And if you have questions or comments as we move through this, please list them. Join the conversation. They can be contrary. They can be your own idea. They can be based on science, magic, or voodoo, whatever, your preference is, right? So, Greg, this is an interesting one, right? And you've been on, quite a few of these live streams, and I wonder if there's going to be a little bias with me today because of the fact that I'm actually doing live streams versus webinars on a live stream. I guess we'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I know what this kind of bubbled up a couple weeks ago, and was on an actual WebEx, right? Remember when WebEx was the only thing, and everyone did webinars, and whatever it was, what it was. And I suddenly thought back to, so in our industry we do quarterly business reviews, right? And back when MPS was hot as hot, a QBR or a business review was part and parcel of an MPS program. You had to do them. Now, when I was doing MPS 2010, 11, in that range, we would strictly hold our business reviews, and I wanted everyone on our team to be involved with the business review with the client. So our business reviews were done on webinars, on WebEx back then. So I would have the tech there. I'd have contracts lady there, or person, sorry, AR, myself. And then I'd ask for 2 or 3 folks on the other side, the customers, to bring in extra people. We'd send donuts ahead, okay, so that there'd be food there for them if it was in the morning, and then refreshments at the end. And we were able to knock out maybe 4 QBRs a day, which seemed light to me, but it's 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the morning. And that was the way we did it. It was so much more efficient. And at the time, the customers sincerely appreciated the fact that they didn't have to wait for us to come in and set up. And, it was just quick, get into the conference room, light up the computer and and make it go.
Yeah.
And then last week I was on a webinar for the first time in a long time, a real webinar, and just the contrast between what we're doing right now versus what they were doing was just incredible.
And I'm going to get into that. So we'll
Okay.
take this in two streams. The first one we're going to talk about is how are they similar? And I think one of the first similarities that it would bring up is that obviously they're both used for presenting, right? So you can, if you're trying to get your message out to the world, use a webinar or a live stream. That's really what they're built for, right? So definitely they're the same in that sense. And I think we'll talk about that one as differences a little later on too, right? Because I think the how of the presenting is different, right? Here's another one similarity. Both can have registrations, right? So you remember when we were throwing this out to the world that it's a little different in how you register, because I know that typically if you're using something like GoToMeeting or WebEx or some other traditional webinar platform, that you're sending out an email, they're going to your registration page, they're signing up their information and they register. Live stream's a little different because they are broadcasting to these different platforms, right? And I know, Greg, sometimes when you're like watching the live streams and you're commenting and kind of putting in your wisdom and your ideas, that you will oftentimes come in on YouTube, Facebook sometimes, and LinkedIn, right? So, and all of those platforms allow people to register, for these things on those individual platforms. So again, the same idea, you can still register people, but that's different, right?
Very different. Actually, that's one of the things I like about it. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say both require some learning too, right? And that anytime you're doing a webinar, I remember the panic and fear that would set in as you're trying to help the guest who's presenting figure out like who's going to be doing the slides, right? Who's presenting the slides? Is that going to be the person doing the presenting, or is that going to be the host? And the infamous, I always love it when you hear people saying next slide, next slide, and then there's a slight delay, and it seems to make people quite nervous, right? So there's learning. You can also do presentations of materials on the live stream, and I'll just bring up an example for you. So if I wanted to share my screen, I can do that. Do it right now on the fly. You can share slides. You can share kind of a screen, a video file, whatever you like, right? And certainly, both platforms give you that flexibility to, kind of present. One thing I do like about this is having the ability to actually be able to see the people that are presenting in the small windows. And I haven't used GoToMeeting in a long time, or one of the other ones. I assume they must have the same capability to give that little video profile as well as you're kind of presenting your, whatever you're looking at on the screen. Yeah. And so you can see here as I scroll through, it's nice and clean and everything else. So the same, right? All right. Now, that's where things are the same. And now, Greg, it's time to have some fun. So let's talk about what some of the differences are.
Okay.
And I've changed my view here so I can still hear you. So what would you say one of the differences are? I've got a few bullet points here, but let's get your differences.
Well, sure. I think this makes initially right off the bat is like the old webinars seem a little more stuffy. I don't know. All right. And I think that's because of the live stream interaction. Okay. And because exactly what we're doing right now, we could be doing on WebEx. We could be doing on the status quo, the old fashioned stuff technically. Right. But because it's on all these other platforms, and roll in the COVID effect too. People are more used to it. They really want that interaction. Okay. And now we can do it through the chat window. I think one of the greatest things that we have that took hold during COVID was the fact that you could type in questions and take questions as you're presenting. Also, the open platform side that you mentioned, right? Anyone, I belong to, from Gitter to Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, all of them. And if I want to see a presentation and it's open on all forums, will be filled. We'll have. I mean, I've seen it when there's been 1,000 on Twitch, 1,000 on Gitter, 1,000 on Rumble, 800 on YouTube, and maybe a dozen or so on Facebook coming in, and then 4 on LinkedIn. But you've got all those channels to hit your platform and to come in, and that, as well as the interaction, like what we're doing right now too.
Yeah, and I see Tanya's put up a comment there, the formality, right? And that's one of the the first things I noticed about live streams versus webinars, that the webinars do tend to, and I don't think they have to be, but they are traditionally more formally set up. And I think this is how hitting my mic, the business world is changing a bit that way too, right? So the things I think business-wise are becoming, especially during COVID and post-COVID, a little bit more conversational, a little more relaxed. I was just having a conversation with my marketing folks at Tiger Paw yesterday, and one of the things we were talking about is how we used to get our hands slapped for, doing contractions in writing, right? And that business writing was very formal, and that's not the case anymore. That's like when you write a blog or when I write a blog, it's very conversational. You can definitely hear the voice of the author, right? Whereas that was a big no-no in the past. And I think there is definitely that with, that's a big difference, I think, between, webinars and live streams for sure.
I agree. And it's so maybe Wes, this isn't a cause. This is just a symptom of a shift out as to how we all interface with each other. That whole, you're right about the contractions. You can't say, you can't print can't. It's cannot back in the old days, right? You had to be a little bit more formal. That's kind of fallen away. And I think it fell away the first time any of us saw our CEO in his den and the dog ran in the background, or the screaming kid came in or something like that. When that happened during COVID, all the facades came down. All that, picture that versus walking into an executive boardroom, getting ready to make a PowerPoint presentation, that 15-minute introduction time frame where everyone around the table introduces themselves and tell us something interesting about yourself. That's all blown away, right? It's now let's have a conversation, which it's kind of a weird thing, is that all this remote stuff, as opposed to making us more disconnected, has actually broken down the walls that did make us disconnected.
I think you're right, because when you had to actually set up a time to travel or to meet folks, that you're restricted in a lot of ways, right? By distance, by travel arrangements, by, calendar, like all that stuff, right? Whereas when you're kind of doing things this way in a live stream or anything else, it can be done on the fly. You can see people and converse with people as they go, right? And Eric Crump did put up here, he says, by the way, this is a really good feature actually in the live stream world, is the automatic closed caption functionality, right? And particularly on a platform like LinkedIn, which is typically people are using during the business day. And people may be interested in seeing a video and, getting an idea of what they're talking about and being able to contribute without making any noise, right? So, Eric, I agree. It's a pretty cool, function, right? To be able to have that closed caption functionality. And what's amazing now is that, in the old days, we would have to actually, I know it's not perfect. Like, it will show some words, that aren't the way you actually said them. But in the old days, the only way to do that was after the video was produced to put in a, what do they call those text files? The SRT file? I can't remember.
Closed caption?
Yeah. There's a special format. I think it's somebody out there watching, and let me know in the comments. I think it's SRT or something like that, right? Oh, neat one. Especially if English is a second language for viewers goes broader. And I never really thought about that, was that depending on where you're watching from and your language preferences, that you'll actually, have those closed captions in your language. Is that right? Does it translate? I've never gotten that from anyone before. So if we get confirmation on that, that's pretty cool. I really like that. And looks like, Greg, you're disconnected. Not sure why, but that's all right. Okay. One of the other things, and I'm going to put this one up here, and this is an important one. As most folks know, I'm the president for the Managed Print Services Association. We get all of our monies to do the work that we do from members, right? And so you want to be careful with all those dollars. And when we were examining renegotiating our traditional webinar package versus the live streaming stuff, there is a huge difference in cost, right? So live streaming is much more accessible, I would say, from a cost perspective for many more people, right? And it looks like, nope, only in English, eh? Okay. Well, that's too bad. That'd be pretty cool if it did, translations. I would love to see that. But yeah, so from a cost perspective, if anyone out there is, looking at I mean, we all need to put our dollars in the best possible places, right? So if there are, options for, paying for something at a lower rate and getting some, similar functionality, I think we would do that, right? And maybe a good example of how that changed, right? Let's see here. I'm going to try and put you in. Nope. Part of how that changed how we consume media, right? And I would be interested in the comments if anyone wants to let me know what their favorite streaming platform is and how much they pay for that streaming platform. Because in the old days, it was cable. And Greg, let's see there. Maybe I'll be able to add you now. Greg, I don't know if you remember when I was growing up, the first time that we had cable, my mind was blown because we had 13 channels, right? All commercial driven, but still 13 channels, and then cable got to the point where you had hundreds of channels, all playing the same thing. Then you're paying hundreds of dollars a month for these cable packages, right? And it's amazing, right? So for all my friends in cable world out there, I know this is done on purpose, but whenever you want that one package, right? Like if it's Discovery Channel, that you actually have to buy some prerequisite packages to be able to get that. You can't just buy the Discovery Channel, right? Like you got to buy the package that comes with 6 channels you don't care about. And I guess where I'm going with that is that when Netflix obviously started it, but now CBS All Access and HBO Max and Disney Plus and Hulu and you name it, right? Like all these different streaming platforms, that you're paying anywhere from $5 to $10 a month, right? If you only want to use one. And I've got a bunch, but I'm still paying probably a third for all the packages I have that I was for cable before, right? So, we can't ignore those things, right? Because people would say, oh, well, the streaming quality is not as good as cable, right? Like that's, one of the reasons that you have a traditional cable is because it's better. Well, guess what, Greg? I don't know about you, but I'm a junkie for entertainment. And I'm watching 4K, HDR, Dolby Vision, Atmos soundtrack stuff now on most of the major providers, right?
Yeah, I mean 5G is changing everything up here. It isn't gotten to me yet, but down outside Chicago, 5G is everywhere, and it's incredible. I mean, it connects everything, and the quality is excellent. It's funny you mentioned that, Wes. So in my show prep for today, I wrote down a list of all my internet things, right? All my internet interfaces, et cetera, et cetera. I have 66. So I'm counting everything from Gitter, Rumble, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Teams, Zoom. I use Generate, Edge, Chrome, and another one, DuckDuckGo. I've got 2 different search engines that go. And this is excessive, but everything from WebEx, LitHub, all over the others I have. There's a ton of those too. So the ability to consume content is at your fingertips, but it's in a word, it's awesome. So you can do just about anything you want and get any information on. And I'm not on, I'm not 24 hours on the computer. I guess it seems like I am, but all this stuff is to filter out all the stuff I don't want to see. And there's 66 different inputs and platforms.
Yeah, you say something really important.
So that's the world we live in now.
Yeah, it's kind of like the accessibility for for broadband or high speed internet has made it more accessible for people to do stuff like this, right? That I guess in the past too, when you're doing a traditional webinar, it's because it was done out of an office, it was hosted in a place that you knew had really good bandwidth, right?
Right.
And you didn't want to show pictures of the guests because you wouldn't be able to see them clearly anyway, right? Because their bandwidth at home or at their other office may not, be the same, right? So yeah, I'll have to do the math on how many things I have, connected, right? But certainly, Yeah, and I don't ever feel like, oh no, I can't do this because then I have to worry about the bandwidth for this other thing, right? So
Right.
also between live streams, my new webinars, I guess, can benefit from that now today as well, right? Here's one.
Right. You know what's another interesting thing? Okay, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say that, when you look at any of the platforms, like if it's LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or Gitter, that they promote more of the content that is natively hosted on their platform, right? And this is a tip out there for people. If
Mhm.
you're trying to get your video seen on LinkedIn, don't just put a YouTube link, because their algorithm will shuffle that down in favor of videos that are natively hosted on the platform, right? So when you're streaming, that it is actually being recorded and held in perpetuity on the platforms that you're streaming to. So I've got mine set up for Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and they're being hosted natively. So they'll, from a marketing perspective, they will get more eyeballs over time than if you're just putting in a link, let's say for a webinar, which is
Mm,
traditionally what you do, right?
right. Here,
And what
West,
was
I
your
want
thought
to
there,
jump
buddy?
in real quick because you swerved into it. Um, okay. It's what, and I think this is another symptom. The hits or the views that take place after the recording are incredibly high. I remember the days when you would do, MPSA, you do a webinar, you put it out on the archives, and you might get 3 visits in a quarter. They're on the archives. No one goes back to the old webinars. But nowadays, these live streams seem to have legs. I mean, you can probably attest to that, but they go on and on and on. You keep getting visitors over time. And that, to me, I think it's always been available, but there's something that's different out there on the audience side.
Yeah, completely agree. And one of the things with that is that you have to learn how to kind of to scrub LinkedIn for where the stuff is, and that's a key difference between a webinar and a live stream. Is that I I think the way that I've turned it before, Greg, was like kind of inbound marketing versus outbound, right? That traditionally
Mhm.
a webinar is an outbound process because you get the list in a file format, a CSV or whatever, of all the people that attended and all the stats and everything else, right? Whereas in a live stream, you've got to learn each of the different platforms' way of delivering that information, right? So you have to independently
Right.
look on LinkedIn, you have to independently look on YouTube, and then run their reports to get the information that you're looking for, right? Yeah, and I'm trying to
Right.
find one.
And I think it's, yeah, I think it's
Yeah, go
more. You're
ahead.
right. It's a pull marketing. If you're going to think of it as a marketing presentation, it is a pull marketing. You're out. Your content should attract, and it's like that. You can get demographics of what types of people are watching your stuff on LinkedIn, for instance, but you can't get right down to the specifics unless they register and things. So that even puts more pressure on having good content, right? Or
Yes,
relevant and transparent content that attracts people enough for them to reach out to you.
yes. And I'm looking at some stats right now, Greg. So one of the live streams that I did that had 60 live viewers at its peak, right?
It's good.
Um, the viewers in the lifetime since that, which was May 3rd, right? So this is just May 3rd to June 1st. Um, the unique viewers, even though there were 60 live, it actually jumped up to 1,570 unique viewers since it was done, right?
See,
So
that's incredible. That's, do the, what is that? That's more than 10x. That's pretty good in my
yeah.
opinion, right? I mean, most people, and there's another thing. A lot of people nowadays are looking at, you need to have 20,000 eyeballs and 50,000 views. No, 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 no. If you can go from 60 to 1,000, I'm assuming those 1,000 wanted to see you, right? So that's boom. That's a plus right there.
It is. And the cool thing is that when people do register on those platforms, like I said, it is a little more work to go in and get the information on who those people are. But typically, you will get
Mm-hmm.
messages. I mean, the number of live streams I've done where afterwards somebody will message me directly and say, "Hey, West, had a question, or can you help us with this, or anything else?" Right. So it's from a lead perspective, it's different because people are actually reaching out to you on on the platform that they're viewing it on versus an email. So it's a little different, right? Webinar, typically do an email outreach, post to make sure they can get a copy of the presentation. If they registered, they get a copy of the presentation. In the live stream world, anybody can see this. It's not private, like it's out there in the world, right? So you have kind of a different way that you sort of promote and value the content, depending on the platform. So I kind of like that. Let's see here. What's another difference? We've already talked about the learning curve. We've talked about the money. We've talked about registrations. I'd be curious to hear anyone else out there that might think that there are some differences or similarities. And then what I'd like to do is find out, and this is a loaded question, but in 2022, if you had to choose to either do one or the other, because you can do both, you can do still webinars today and live streams, what would you do if you were forced to make a choice on doing a live stream or a webinar? You were no longer allowed to do both, right? And yeah, Greg Walters, it's got a chat, keeps getting bumped out. So there's one of the things in live streams, right? Mind you, of course, it happens in webinars as well. But so I'd like to see in your comments, if anyone wants to leave one, let us know. What do you think? Live streams or webinars in 2022? Which one's the winner? If you only had one choice and you can only use one platform, which one would it be? I think from my perspective, definitely, it's no shock. I mean, I'm doing this on a live stream, so I have a much stronger preference for live streams, both for the ability to reach new audiences, ones that I'm not as familiar with, because again, it's live on all the platforms. Anybody can watch them. From a cost perspective, being able to make sure that it's affordable, that it's not eating into my entire budget, so I have money to spend on other things for my marketing spend. Being able to do it from anywhere. So as long as I get a camera and a microphone, that I can, set these up in a hurry and do them anywhere, right? So, Greg, I think you're back there. Hey, buddy. Yep. What about you? So what wins if you only had one that you could use?
Can you hear me? Good.
Yeah.
I would go, I'd live stream. I'd live stream. And I tell you what you just said, I brought up a real good point. There's a lot of technical overhead with some of the other platforms, and live streaming so far, you're right, you can do it anywhere. I mean, I have done web access from the parking lots of Starbucks, and it was kind of touch and go, but it did work. Sure. But now that there's lighter overhead with the streams. Here's another thing: is it's not necessarily a technical reason in terms of hardware, software, network connection, and stuff like that. I think live streams are generationally more accepted by the new generations coming in, right? It's very similar to TikTok. It's very similar to what Instagram used to be in terms of using and getting out there and just throwing something up on the internet. It's similar in tone to that, as opposed to walking into a room and making a presentation. The live streams, they seem a little more live, if that makes sense. And I think people that are just coming into the industry accept that medium. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're trying to get out there into the world,
so that's my interesting.
The one user left their comment too, that it just reaches such a wider audience, right? That if you're looking for, really hitting a wider audience, that it's, it's a great thing. And I do have one other thing that I just thought of, that live streams tend to be like, I do these every Wednesday, right? Wednesday, 11 o'clock, like clockwork. There would have to be, a real strong reason. Like I think when I was moving, I missed probably one of these since we started them, right? I've missed one Wednesday. So live streams do tend to be more regular in scheduling, that they're kind of predictable, almost like a television show, but they don't have to be, because for my own program, it's, once a week at the same time. But for the MPSA, for example, we're just scheduling them like we used to the webinars, right? So it's the same kind of, it's the only time we do them for the MPSA is when there's actually, someone presenting or getting information, right? So, well, that was a ton of fun, Greg Walters. We are at the bottom of the half hour, so certainly appreciate you coming in while Ken's off doing his travels.
Time goes by too fast.
Can you believe it, eh?
Apologize for all the technical difficulties, but again,
not at all.
We powered through it. See, so that's what's cool about being able to do it all. But yeah, it was fun. Wes, we should do it again.
We certainly will. And for everyone out there, make sure that you visit flatrate.world to learn more about the advantages of flat rate over traditional cost per page. It's all there. That's customer-facing page, and you can get in touch with me to learn more about that. And until next time, keep it real and keep it live.
See ya.